Alright, so last night we had a pretty extravagant card. Don't, I got a dog. We had a pretty extravagant card. Pitbull Cruz versus Lamont Roach, which was supposed to be Erzlandi Lara versus Johnny Beck. But Johnny Beck ended up taking steroids, getting called for, yada, yada, yada. Lara goes against Gonzalez, and we'll get into it in a second. But right now, let's start from the bottom of the card and work our way up. Not all the way from the bottom. I don't care about most of the prelim fighters, but Frank Martin specifically, I knew he was supposed to win the matchup. I knew that he was like matched with that opponent, just like a tune-up fight. But I didn't expect Bartholomew to be that good at. I guess he was only working a jab, but it was a very slick jab. Let's as I was saying, I expected Bartholomew. I didn't expect Bartholomew to work a jab that nice and crisp. Even though that was like all he demonstrated, it was still very accurate, very quick, and it kind of stumbled Frank Martin just for a bit. But obviously, when the only thing you are working is a jab, it's not going to really do much. Now, obviously, Frank Martin kind of started to work around, adapt around his one and only offense, which was that left straight jab. Eventually, that didn't cut out for it, and eventually Frank Martin adapted and worked around his left straight with insane footwork. If he had this footwork during Tank Davis, he probably would have just been up and up the rounds. I don't know if he would have knocked Tank Davis out. It looked like he did have power, but he would have been stacking up more rounds like he should have did. But this Frank Martin is at a higher weight, stronger. I can't say faster or nothing, but he looks pretty like on point. Like, elite? He was always elite. But I guess apex this time. He's an apex predator at 140 against a Bartholomew. Which, though I never heard of this guy before, he actually turned out to be a kind of good fighter, or just a very technical fundamentalist, I guess. But moving on to the next fight, which I think was Lara versus Gonzalez. I don't know the order. I'm pretty sure Shane Mosley was in between. I remember seeing a Shane Mosley knocked out in round 8. Tough for the Mosley family. But skipping that fight, I didn't really care about it. Lara versus Gonzalez. Lara was supposed to go against Johnny Beck, and I assumed that he will win off a decision because his jab is just that precise. But yeah, I don't think Johnny Beck would have fought like Gonzalez. Gonzalez fought, how do you put this? I think he came in with a game plan, but when he got in front of Lara, and the way that Lara fights is so unique, where he's always out of range and he only throws a 1-2 combo to the point where he doesn't allow really any other kind of action to happen. But at the end of it, he wasn't able to get anything out. He wasn't able to let any combos go. He wasn't able to, I guess, do his own kind of footwork, work his game plan. Lara stood out of range, popped the jab, moved around for 3 minutes, popped the jab, move around for 3 minutes, and when Gonzalez got stagnant is the word, still, he popped a 1-2 and knocked them out. It's kind of insane how this works for Lara. I had to fucking slam dunk his ass for a second. But it's kind of insane how Lara works this exact same thing out with every opponent, and he's been doing it for a decade. He's 42, 41, still doing the exact same still doing the exact same plan. Just jab him to death. And I guess it worked. It wasn't like a Bartholomew jab where he's in front of you, popping the jab, might do a sidestep, pop the jab. what Laura does is just something completely different. And most people find it boring. I find it boring. It's kind of because no action happens besides when Laura jumps out of his skin and pops a jab. That's the only time that any sort of action happens. But beyond that, it's just a stalemate most of the time. Laura's not allowing any action. Gonzalez can't get any action. And so it's just this constant just weight gain. And usually his opponent falls down. Now that was Laura Gonzalez. Moving on to who do we have next? The Pitbull Cruz, Sheik Foster versus Stephen Fulton. I was actually excited. I thought this fight should have been a headline, but I get Pitbull Cruz is a magnitude star because he fought Tank Davis and whatnot. But in my personal opinion, this fight I don't know. I think it was good where it's at because Pitbull Cruz did some crazy shit, and we'll get into that in a bit. But right now, Sheik Foster versus Stephen Fulton was insane. Now, I had Stephen Fulton losing the match simply because he was moving up from 122, 126, all the way to 130, where at 122, he never really had any punching power. But people are going to assume at 130, he's going to have all this power. But at 126, he was getting dropped back to back. I guess he wasn't dropped by Figueroa, but he was dropped by Ramos, and he also didn't have any punching power against Figueroa or Ramos. So my overall takeaway of that was simply that he wasn't going to have enough power, but his technical skill, his technical prowess was going to carry him out through the fight. And I was completely wrong about that. It ended up to the point being, you had, how do I put this? Sheik Foster had the technique. Sheik Foster had the power. Sheik Foster had the footwork, the accuracy, the IQ. He had it all. And I didn't understand how I had all these things for Stephen Fulton, and then the one thing that I had for Sheik was power, and it turned out to be the complete opposite. Well, not even opposite. Everything to Sheik and nothing to Fulton. It kind of sucked because I believed in Fulton. I was going for Fulton in the Inoue fight, and he ended up getting knocked out. But I still believed in the champ to be pound for pound talent. And then this happens, and it's like he tried to touch the sun, and it just didn't happen. Now we kind of have like a new pound for pound candidate brewing under the waters. And eventually, once he starts to get more of those fights, I heard Shushu Carrington, Nick Ball. There's a lot of guys at 130 that if a Sheik Foster could get his hands on, hey man, it's a wrap for, I guess, that division. Maybe 135. Who's that really 135 that he can't stand toe-to-toe with? Abdullah Mason, light work. Gervonta Davis, light work. Shakur Stevenson, now that's some work. That's gonna get your ass kicked. But there's like a fourth champion, and it's Murtatila, Raymond Murtatila, which he was ducking his mandatory, which I forgot his mandatory. We're not moving yet, but they all had something to say about it. But that's oh yeah, and I didn't mention this in my last video, but Stephen Fulton had purposely came 2 weights over, or 2 pounds over, to try to gain an advantage over his opponent, Foster. And it ended up working against him, because in the fight he looked sluggish, he looked slow. With everything I said, technique, footwork, speed was out the window simply because he chose to come bloated out of weight. So trying to gain an advantage. It's the same thing Keyshawn Davis tried to do. It didn't work out for him either. And he ended up having to, I guess he lost his belt. And now Fulton lost the fight. So that strategy doesn't even work for fighters. I don't know why they're trying to do this over and over again. It doesn't work. Just come on, wait. Be disciplined. There's no reason for this, like, oh, if I gain 2 pounds, I'm going to have this advantage. You're not going to be stronger. You're going to be weaker. You're going to be more bloated. I guess the one person it did work for was Ryan Garcia. That's about it. I haven't seen it work for any other person beyond Ryan Garcia. Now, the main event, Isaac Pitbull Cruz versus Lamont Roach. That fight just happened, and I'm gonna be real. I didn't expect Pitbull to be that good. He showed that. Now, I knew he was a powerful guy. I didn't know that powerful, but I guess Lamont did jump from 130 to 135 to 140. So it was a kind of a quick, like, weight progression or whatever. But Pitbull knockout over my guy, and then he had, it kind of looked like he was faster, but they might have been on like the same wavelength, I guess. But then technique. Now, I was one of those guys that believe Pitbull Cruz were one-dimensional, just like a square. I didn't expect him to have all these other dimensions to him that he showed in that fight. Now, I thought he would just come out swinging like that. Nothing really much to talk about. But he had a jab, a consistent jab that overwhelmed Lamont Roach. Now, Isaac Pitbull Cruz kind of surprised me. I didn't expect him to have the technique. I didn't expect him to have the skills, which they're kind of the same thing. But there's a way that usually he's wide with his punches. He's not ever like that, constrict with it. Straight punches, straight jab. He always had the constrict head guard to protect himself, and I guess his big ass forehead to protect himself. But I didn't expect him. What, my guy? Now, I didn't expect him to be that skilled, because when we saw Lamont Roach against Gervonta Davis, that he looked untouchable. He just do like that, and then Gervonta Davis had a win over Isaac Cruz. So, and he was also shorter than Gervonta. So we just assumed that there will automatically be like this triangular theory where since Gervonta beat Pitbull, then Lamont Roach has to beat Cruz because Lamont Roach beat Gervonta Davis. But it ended up not working like that at all. And it turned out Isaac Pitbull Cruz were the more skilled fighter, knocked them down, dropped them. But I don't know how it ended up being a draw. Now, I guess maybe I didn't see the whole fight, but it looked like it was pretty even. And then you had Lamont Roach getting dropped down. So clearly, I don't know, maybe there was something missing from my mind, but I don't see how those two things don't add up. If it was even throughout the fight, and then Pitbull Cruz drops Lamont Roach, which is an automatic round win, and then like another point deducted, 8-10 round, right? Pitbull Cruz should have had that in the bag. But I guess it doesn't really look bad on Isaac Cruz's side. It's more bad on Lamont Roach's side, because now he's kind of left with having 2 draws back to back to back. Not 3, but 2 draws against Gervonta and then Isaac Pitbull Cruz. Now, he could spin his own little narrative, his own little web, and say, oh, boxing has been robbing me for so long. They've been doing this foolish shit. Yada, yada, yada. He can spin his own narrative for his next fight with, I think, Shakur Stevenson. Hopefully that's his next fight. I think he's going back to 135. If he runs back this fight at 130, at 140, I don't think he's going to be able to do anything to Cruz. It looked like Cruz was on his ass that fight, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with all of this stuff